Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at Revenge, a French film released in 2017. Let me give a general content warning for this whole movie and video, since Revenge, as its name implies, is a rape-revenge film. The rape-revenge subgenre goes back to at least 1960, when Ingmar Bergman released the Oscar-winning Swedish film The Virgin Spring. That movie inspired Wes Craven when he made The Last House on the Left in 1972, which kicked off a rape-revenge boom that was most prominent throughout the 70s. These exploitation films, which were sometimes but not always horror movies, used a woman's rape as their inciting incident, then spent the rest of their runtime showing the rapists getting their comeuppances. Sounds okay in theory, I guess, but the assault scenes were often filmed salaciously, the victims were regularly killed, and the revenge was, half the time, done by a father figure, completely erasing the woman's agency. Up until now, I haven't covered any rape-revenge movies on the channel, partly because I haven't seen that many of them myself. I thought Ms. 45 was good, and I thought Last House on the Left was, impactful, but besides those two, I don't have much experience with the subgenre. It's just not the type of thing I normally want to watch, you know? But I was intrigued by the fact that Revenge was written, directed, and edited by a woman, French filmmaker Coralie Farja. I figured if this type of material could be handled in a sensitive way, a woman filmmaker was more likely to do it. I'm glad I gave it a shot, because Revenge kicks a lot of ass. Although it superficially follows the same old beats as any rape revenge, Farja carefully crafts the story from an authentic female perspective. The main character, Jen, played by Matilda Lutz in a phenomenal performance, is a person who clearly celebrates her sexuality. Through simple shots and silent stares, though, we see her slowly lose control as the power shifts to the scummy male characters around her. This is all conveyed through Farja's filmmaking with a confidence surprising for a first feature film. Prior to this, she had only made a couple of shorts. If you think you can handle the premise, I really recommend Revenge. After the inciting incident, it's pretty much non-stop badassery, shot spectacularly by cinematographer Robert Havart with a bitchin' soundtrack courtesy of Rob. It's kind of like Mandy in a certain way, full of long, beautiful, colorful shots that I can't show all of in a kill count. But they're a big part of what makes this movie so awesome, and another example of why kill counts are not proper substitutes for watching a film. This movie's strengths are in showing how lengthy and uncomfortable some experiences are. You don't get the same effect when I sum it up with a single sentence that's probably a corny joke. It's so easy to watch Revenge for yourself too, since it's available on Shudder, today's sponsor. You should know by now that Shudder is my absolutely favorite streaming service. I never get tired of perusing their selection, which they're constantly adding to and maintaining with curated collections. And the range of these movies! They've got mainstream classics like Poltergeist, sleazy slashers like Sorority House Massacre, and weird-ass 60s Russian films like Vi, all in one convenient place. Relevant to Revenge, they recently added Ms. 45, the early rape-revenge film that I thought was really good. Shudder also has original series like Slasher Flesh and Blood, and Creepshow by horror legend Greg Nicotero, now in its 3rd season. You can watch Shudder on all your favorite devices, and the price is unreal. Only $5.99 a month or $56.99 a year. To try Shudder free for 30 days, go to Shudder.com and use promo code DeadMeatJames. That's Shudder.com, promo code DeadMeatJames for 30 days free of the best streaming service out there. They say that Revenge is a dish best served cold, but how many kills can we get if we serve it fresh and piping hot? Let's find out and get to them. The movie begins with a helicopter approaching from the distance. If you like kick-ass landscape shots, you're in for a treat, my friend. But first, a title card! We're at an isolated villa in the middle of the desert where an absurdly sexy couple is ready to get things going right away.
You drive me completely crazy.
Yeah, she's pretty into you too, dude. Look at her grabbing on that man ass. He returns the favor later.
Where's that little peachy ass of mine? Little juicy peachy ass.
Turns out this naked peach eater is a married man with a wife and crying baby back home while he has his affair with their next door neighbor Jennifer. Jen's walking around their fuck pad when a couple of fuck boys show up, ready to go on a hunting trip with that adulterer Richard. They're here early and were never meant to see or meet Jen, but Richard makes introductions all the same.
Jennifer? Just a friend.
Dog, she's got what you need, and you say she's just a friend? Biz is turning in his grave right now. R.I.P. Right away, we can tell that Stan and Dimitri don't know how to act around attractive women. That awkwardness continues later that night when they all party poolside in a colorful artsy montage. Revenge's electronic score was done by Rob, who had previously scored horror films like Maniac and one of the many Amityville movies. I think the 10th one? Jen gives us her only bit of character shading when she says she hopes to move to Los Angeles and get noticed.
Everything is possible there.
As she speaks, Dimitri plays the voyeur through binoculars. It gives these shots a sort of comic book style while continuing to portray Jen's body through the male gaze. That concept, popularized by Laura Mulvey, says that women are often depicted as an image, with men the bearer of the look. Coralie Farja leans into this idea during the film's first act, thus all the leering close-ups on Jen's ass. Richard's got some peyote, but thinks it's too dangerous to mess around with right now.
A few years ago, a Polish guy got so high in this shit, he sawed his own leg off without feeling a damn thing.
He gives it to Jen to keep away from his friends, and she puts it in her heart locket for safekeeping. Then it's back to the flirtatious fun. Jen plays around and dances on a very excited Stan, but that was just fooling around. The night ends with her and Richard going to the bedroom. The next morning, Richard is gone, out getting their hunting licenses. While Dimitri floats in the pool with a hangover, Stan is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, eager to get some one-on-one time with Jen.
So, it's just the two of us.
Yeah, kinda, I guess, besides the floaty guy. Not knowing what to do or say, Jen excuses herself to pack for her return trip later that day. While she's changing, Stan walks in on her, and he doesn't take the hint when she tries to laugh it off. Instead, he takes a seat on the bed, and the tension in the room quickly reaches a simmer.
What is it you don't like about me?
Jen tries to shut things down by saying he's not her type.
You're too small.
Oh,
I like taller guys, that's all.
It's something that, if said earnestly, I'd judge as being shallow. But clearly, Jen's just trying to defuse this situation. It doesn't work, and Stan calls her stupid while saying she seemed into him last night.
you came onto me like a pussy in it.
The fear on Jen's face shows that the situation's reached a boil, and sadly, this whole scene probably feels familiar to way too many women watching it unfold. Content warning, since we've reached the catalyst of this rape revenge film, and since we can't count on that fuckwad Dimitri doing anything to stop it.
Alors si tu veux en profiter, tu entres, sinon tu te casses et tu fermes la porte.
The horrendous crime itself takes place mostly off-screen, with sounds that are so disturbing Dimitri turns on the TV to drown them out. Then the complicit bastard takes a dip in the pool while Jen's violated. I'd like to pause for a minute and briefly delve into film analysis, since this movie has an important lesson that's sometimes overlooked. In many rape revenge movies, the violated woman is demure and innocent, as though she needs to be a perfect victim to make the story work. Jen is nothing like that. She's promiscuous and knowingly has an affair with a married man, and is even pretty vapid. Her one and only goal is to move to LA and get noticed. Farja's point is that none of that matters. Whether a woman is sensual, whether she's flirty the night before, whether she's a goddamn sex worker, it's irrelevant. Her sexuality should be in her control and her decision. No matter who she is, she didn't ask for and doesn't deserve sexual assault. Richard gets home later, and his dialogue plays into that theme when he blames Jen for what happened.
You're so damn beautiful too, it's hard to resist you.
She asks for a helicopter to go home right away, but since her going home might blow the lid off of this affair, Richard instead tries to buy her off with a job in Canada. When she persists and says to call the chopper or she'll call his wife, he hits her to the ground and reveals the true extent of his shittiness. That's as good a cue as any for Jen to get the fuck out of there. She runs from the house, and Stan and Dimitri quickly join the chase. Things have gone from terrible to worse, and Jen soon finds herself trapped at the top of a cliff. The monstrous men corner her, and Richard pretends to call a helicopter, but it ends up being a ruse. Holy shit, these guys suck! They're the kind of entitled bastards who will do anything to avoid consequences for their actions. Richard tells his friends they need to pretend this never happened, and they can take care of the body a little later. They go back to the villa and burn Jen's belongings, then this murderous dick calls his wife and says he loves her. Ew. God, and he wears his shoes on the bed? Motherfuck, this guy's the worst. Also, straight up sociopath.
Je voulais te dire, je suis vraiment désolé pour Jen. Enfin, pour qui? Enfin, Jen.
Connais pas.
Somewhere in the desert, there are giant ants! Oh my god! And giant bullet-sounding blood drops? Oh man, this is just nasty. Jen is clearly not in the best of conditions, but since there wasn't a kill graphic, you know she ain't dead. Probably in shock though. Obviously, it's not realistic that Jen survived this fall. I mean, look at her. She's got a tree stabbing her through the torso. But we're watching a hyper-stylized film, if you couldn't tell by the way it's shot. Farja said she didn't want realistic gore, but rather something over the top and grotesque, like in South Korean films such as Oldboy and I Saw the Devil.
I wanted to create something that would be more phantasmagoric and more baroque in a way.
Lucky for Jen, she lives in the age of wired earbuds, and after using them to retrieve a lighter, she sets fire to the tree. It weakens and falls apart before her back can get barbecued, meaning Jen has succeeded in her first fatal challenge. But let me tell you something, girl, you got a lot more ahead. All thanks to this trio of assholes who look like they just landed on Isla Sorna, ready to capture some dinosaurs. Jen hears them park on the cliff above her and drags herself away. I love the shot of Dimitri tossing an empty can that establishes how close they are. Just before they reach the edge, she presses herself against the cliffside. When they look down, all they see is a blackened spot where once there was a woman impaled on a tree. Though Stan begins to waver, Richard tells him to man up and put his killy face on. Easy to say coming from the guy with constant killy face. It's dark by the time they reach the bottom of the cliff. They find Jen's blood trail and follow it in a haunting montage lit by headlights. It ends at a lake Jen smartly used to cut the blood trail short, and the men split up to search around it.
Je vais rester ici si jamais elle revient dans les parages.
Stan is such a sniveling, weak little fucker, enjoying the comfort of car heat while his friends tend to the situation he created. Jen successfully hides underwater when Dimitri passes her on his four-wheeler, then swims ashore while Dimitri's taken a Dimitri and grabs him by the gun, or grabs his gun. He tells her to take it easy, but she actually pulls the trigger. Unfortunately, the gun wasn't loaded, and after Dimitri knocks Jen down, he radios in that he got her. Oh, shut up, Stan. Dimitri begins to drown Jen in the lake, but she grabs his hunting knife and uses it to stab him in the eye. Holy shit! The man who turned a blind eye to her crime has now got a knife sticking out of that blind eye. And this ain't the type of movie where that kills someone right away. We watched this fuckface scream and shout for a good long while. He finally succumbs to the injury, and since Jen's a practical predator now, she takes the knife back from his face. You know, just in case. Blah, 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 blah. Now Jen's Rough Rider rolling like she's Desert DMX, but after it grows dark and she runs out of gas, she hobbles off into a cave. There, she lights a fire so we can continue getting awesome shots and checks her newly earned supplies. Ooh, beer! Beer. I like that the beer is called Altamira, the name of a cave in Spain, since she is presently in a cave trying to deal with the branch still sticking out of her stomach. Revenge was filmed in Morocco, near Marrakesh, but the film's setting is left ambiguous to make Jen's experience feel more universal.
It could be set in any desert. It could be America, South Africa.
This actual cave they shot in was extremely cold, one of many hardships actor Matilda Lutz had to endure. But she did it and ran around in the desert barefoot, all while wearing hardly any clothes because she believed in Coralie Farja.
She always had my back, and I didn't feel ever uncomfortable because of the situation, and she made sure that when there were, nude scenes or, kind of nude scenes, that the set was closed, and I just trusted her so much.
Jen remembers the peyote in her locket and its analgesic effects Richard mentioned, so she eats it. Thank you, Jen. As a fan of The Simpsons Chili Cook-Off episode and Beavis and Butthead Do America, I love when people trip balls in the desert. The drug kicks in and Jen starts seriously wigging out, which means it's the perfect time to perform a little impromptu medical procedure. She splits open the beer can with a knife, sterilizes her instrument, then, oh my god, so graphically slices open her skin. Holy shit! It's insanely explicit, but she's so high she don't bat an eye. She closes and cauterizes her wound with a searing hot beer can and passes out in the cave, her abdomen finally free of tree. The next morning, Richard and Stan reunite and wonder where Dimitri could be. Oh, there he is. Aw, and Stan has a nasty splashy pool party with him? Looks like Jen might be more capable than Richard expected. She's definitely more capable than Stan. Not even Richard can stand that guy's whinging anymore. As they drive across the limitless lightless expanse, Jen wakes up. Whoa, a cave? How fucked up did you get last night, Jen? Enough to give yourself a branding, I guess. It's like a tattoo, but crispier. It's no coincidence that the image is of a phoenix either. Jen has risen from the ashes and is ready to live again. She has a dream where she runs into Richard and gets her head blown off with some not great looking CG. Then she wakes up to find it's still dark outside. Jesus Christ, what is happening? Oh no, she's seeing lizards and shit. Look at. I don't normally like double dream fake outs, but I'm fine with this one since it leads into a trippy montage. Makes sense for Jen to experience too. She did take peyote last night after all. Jen wakes up for real and arms herself with every weapon at her disposal. She sets out looking like a juicy peach badass. Man, Coralie Farja is quite fond of Lutz's derriere. It's all butts all the time here. Butt City, I tells ya! Farja didn't want to cover up Jen and she took back control. Instead of shifting her appearance to modesty, Jen continues to use her near-naked body as a, quote, tool to have a new strength. This peach is now a predator out on the prowl, no longer merely trying to survive. She's out for revenge. Jen is played by Italian actor Matilda Lutz, who had starred in Rings right around the time she did Revenge. She had hardly any time to prepare for this role, getting cast after the original actress dropped out a week before production.
I got a call on Friday and Sunday I was on a plane to go to Paris.
Well,
A week after.
We were shooting, like 5 days later.
Lutz said playing Jen was basically playing two separate characters. The first, a Lolita-like seductress that she based in part on Marilyn Monroe. The second, a damaged woman set on vengeance that she based on predatory animals like panthers. Richard and Stan find the abandoned four-wheeler. Though Stan wants to stick together, Richard says they need to split up, so he leaves to search the mountainside. Stan tries to fix himself up in a mirror, which gives away his position to Jen. She tracks him with binoculars, reversing the perspective she was subjected to earlier, and catches up to him when he runs out of gas. As Stan's refueling, she takes aim and fires, but the recoil knocks her back to the ground and causes her shot to go into his shoulder. He gets away from her, but she finds his blood trail and tracks him by it just as they had tracked hers the night before. He manages to hide and get behind her, but it's difficult for him to shoot a shot when she shot him in his shooting shoulder. He still shoots her ear off though, which really sucks. Those pink star earrings were so her. As the sound goes out to reflect Jen's perception, Stan chases after her, shooting ineffectively. She breaks open her flashlight on a rock as she passes by, and the barefoot Stan runs right into her trap. Sounding like the Real Monsters scream there. Oh my god, his foot is bleeding so much! Oh, that's so fucking gross! Oh dude, no, don't pick at it, please, man! The ultra-violence goes on for so long, it almost becomes darkly comedic. But I'm still relieved when it's over. Almost as happy as Stan is there. I love that Jen uses glass as a weapon against Stan, since he had used the glass window against her during his assault. It also ties back to when she saw him for the first time. He scared her and caused her to break a glass on the ground. He gets back to his car and presses his fucked up foot to the floor in an effort to run Jen down. With nowhere to hide, she turns and faces him. It takes a few shots, but she manages to shoot her rapist in the head and sidestep his speeding vehicle. It comes to a stop mere feet away from Jen's butt, and she double checks to make sure that Stan's dead. Yep, he's dead. Jen takes off in her new ride as Richard realizes he's on his own now. He drives all day and night until he gets back to his villa, where he sticks his head in the pool and calls for a helicopter to take him home. At this point, he's ready to wash himself of this whole experience, literally, as he strips down and gets his dirty ass into the shower. Before long, Richard hears a noise, so he grabs his gun and checks his house. This is all done in an incredible extended one take. Seriously, this thing is nuts, in more than one way. It started as soon as Richard hung up the phone and follows him stripping, showering, and searching. It's nearly 6 minutes of an unbroken Steadicam take that took half a day to rehearse and half a day to shoot. Props to actor Kevin Janssens for being butt-ass naked for the whole thing. With this successive dong hanging, Farja flips the usual genre trope of a woman being naked on screen. Just when he thinks he's secured the premise, Richard sees Jen pointing a gun at him through the villa's blue-tinted window. I love the blue and pink windows in this ultra-modern house. They're the colors most traditionally associated with gender presentation, so it makes sense for them to be in this movie that's all about gendered power dynamics. And the framing of Jen through the blue window now, instead of the pink one like in the beginning of of the film, symbolizes that she's taken up the violent vigilante role traditionally reserved for men. Before he can start with his bullshit, Jen shoots Richard in the side, kicking off a tense shootout that Jen dominates, forcing Richard to drag his injured ass away. That leaves another blood trail for Jen to follow through the house. With a real Mossberg shotgun, Lutz had to strengthen herself to carry.
The first 2 weeks of shooting, I couldn't hold it for more than 2-3 minutes.
Richard tries an ambush, but Jen notices his blood flood coming around the corner like this were the Overlook Hotel. Yeah, maybe take a different route. Richard realizes his trap's not gonna work. See the gushing blood? Now there's your problem, Dick. So he fixes himself up with a roll of saran wrap. Good. All better. Now there's no more blood. Except, you know, all the blood literally everywhere. It's more blood than any human being realistically has, but again, Farja wanted a heightened reality. She asked for so much blood here, the effects department worried they'd run out, and eventually she grabbed some buckets and took things into her own hands.
She would do it herself. She would get the bucket and she would start, like, she looked more like a painter than a director.
They get back to the shootout and run in circles around the house until Jen slips and slides on the bloody floor. Richard catches up to her and knocks her out with his gun butt. His naked ass manhandles her and underlines the movie's themes once more, saying that she caused this for herself by not doing what he demanded.
Women always have to put up a fucking...
Yeah, she ain't having that shit, dude. Not after the day she's had. Jen grabs the gun and shoots Richard in the chest with it, sending his bloody taint flying against the wall. And this movie's not doing any bullshit fake deaths here. Richard is dead. Long live Jen. The movie ends with Jen hearing the sound of helicopter blades grow ever closer. Cue a Luke into the camera and another title card. When push comes to shove off a goddamn cliff, it takes some grade A killing to survive. How much of it? Let's find out and get to the numbers. Only 3 people died in Revenge, but boy, did they deserve it. The victims were all male, which makes sense in a story like this, and with a runtime of 108 minutes, that left us with a kill on average every 36 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Dimitri. It may not be the one we were most looking forward to, but the effects on his stabbed face are seriously nasty. Doubly so later when we see his corpse all waterlogged. Dull machete for lamest kill will go to Richard. I wanted to see that guy suffer more than just a couple of gunshots. And that's it. Revenge premiered at TIFF in 2017 and was written before the Me Too movement happened. Farja wasn't surprised when the film gained extra relevance though. She says these problems have always been around, it's just that people weren't always listening.
Many people knew what was happening, for instance, in the Weinstein story, and weren't doing anything.
Whatever she decides to make next, I'll be the first in line for. But until then, I'm James A. Janice. This has been the Kill Count.
On the next Kill Count.
Start spreading the news. Jason's leaving today. He wants to be a part of it. New York, New York.
Jason takes Manhattan, sees the J-Man take a bite out of the Big Apple. That is, when he finally gets there. First, he has to be on a boat for an hour.
Oh, that's nice.
A boat full of, you guessed it, horny teenagers.
We've already been through all of this.
Actually, these teens aren't all that horny, relatively speaking.
Get off of me.
But they sure do die just the same. Too bad the MPAA got nearly all the gore cut out.
Son of a bitch.
And too bad the budget forced them to film most of the city scenes in Vancouver.
No, please, no!
And too bad the final girl has visions of a crappy-looking little boy Jason.
So, are you having fun yet?
Oh man, is there anything this movie does well?
I don't know what to say.
I mean, I guess the rooftop boxing scene, that was pretty cool.
Take your best shot.
When I saw it in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. This week, watch what's possibly the single worst film in the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yo, man, it's cool. It's cool, man.
And this Friday, tune in for the Kill Count recount on Dead Meat.
This voyage is doomed. Yeah, tell me about it.
Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, can currently be watched on the pictured streaming platforms. Dead Meat always recommends you watch the movie for yourself before its kill count. It's the only way to have your own properly informed opinion. Kill counts are never meant to replace the experience of watching a film.
Thanks a lot for watching this extra Kill Count. I want to thank some patrons like Mikey Raylos, Dante Paul, Strange Network, Paul Freese, Jack Muller, and Gremlin Absolute. I filmed this episode on a live stream. I'm actually doing a live stream right now. If you weren't there, I guess you fucking missed it, so sucks to be you, right? Look at all these people, they're in the live stream. Thanks everyone, be good people. Oh wait, let's have the live stream say it. They're all saying be good people. So fucking do it.